Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays on a Thursday. I am on vacation, so please don't judge me, okay? So I want to finish up that conversation that we were having last week on the Scott's family dynamics. And I want to focus in particularly on the conversation about the golden child. And we see that Marceau starts that conversation with Maurice. So I want to dive into that today. Before I do, I just want to say I really appreciate where the show is headed. I like that we get a chance to look at family dynamics and look at it through a couple of generations. We get to see generational patterns play out and see what happens when unfinished business from childhood or from the family of origin shows up in dating relationships, in marital relationships, in parenthood. These are the things that I love. I know it can be messy because life is messy and relationships are messy. But I like that it starts conversations like the conversation we're having today. Okay, so let's establish a working definition of the golden child. The golden child is a child who may receive preferential treatment or favoritism, right? And it could be for a number of reasons. It could be because they have an attribute that a parent or a person in power in the family values. So it could be academic achievements, athletic achievements, beauty. Maybe they win pageants, or they get recognized for their beauty. Whatever achievement that the family system values. And that child usually goes on to normalize the family, especially if there's some dysfunction. Because you can point to this child and go, we can't be that bad. Our situation can't be that detrimental because look, we have this child that's thriving. And so sometimes the family will pull their identity from this child, okay? What I think is a real golden child is this version of it. There's a different variant. And so it's the child that the parent projects their idealized version of themselves onto. And so this child doesn't necessarily have to have any specific achievement. Like they could be like a BC student and the parent will insist that they're a genius, even though their academic achievements don't quite match the claims that the parent is making. But for whatever reason, they will project that onto this child. And the opposite of it, by the way, is the scapegoat. So if they project the idealized version of themselves onto this child, the scapegoat is when they project the version of themselves like they're failures and their perceived failures or shortcomings, they will project it onto another child. So Marceau points out that Maurice was the golden child in the family. And so I don't know which variant he's talking about, but nonetheless, he says that was his experience. So if Marceau was the golden child, it makes me wonder, or if Maurice was the golden child, it makes me wonder, what was Marceau? Because if you have a child that's receiving preferential treatment, favoritism is being seen as special in the family, then who are you? Usually, if that's happening in a family system, you have a child that's being neglected. For every child that gets preferential treatment, there's a child who is not. There's a child whose efforts are not being affirmed, who may feel unseen, who may feel outright neglected, or maybe the scapegoat. So it makes me question what role he plays. Don't know. But I do know this. I do know that usually when you have that dynamic, if you have favoritism, it will build in some form of anger, some form of resentment. So it can stretch anywhere from like a mild irritation with the person all the way up into a resentment. So I would really like us to be on assignment to see if we see any resentment, okay? In adulthood, a lot of times the adult children who had to deal with the golden child will come on and take a kind of corrective position with the golden child because they don't think that they got enough correction growing up. It's not uncommon for that to happen. So sometimes it could be done with love, and sometimes it could be like they are aware that that child is been sent out into a world where they're not going to get praised for every little thing that they do. And they're going to get held more accountable than they did in their childhood. So they may be a person who may try to assist with love. Or if they have resentment, they may go ahead and try to correct that golden child, but they may do it with a little bit of a nanny boo boo, you got in trouble attitude. So I want us to be on assignment to see what variant do we think they have in their relationship. Is Marceau a loving corrector? Maybe he does it in some situations and not in others. Or do you see some form of resentment? Do you see him celebrate when his brother gets in trouble? We've seen Maurice get a DUI that got dismissed. I want to say that, but he got a DUI. Was there a celebration there? And now we see that Maurice is having some family trouble. And Marceau goes on to point out that he thinks that what happened in their household is now playing itself out with Maurice and his children now, with his sons. And I'm not sure if that's true or not, but he's there to participate in that conversation. So a lot of times people think that the golden child is a coveted role to have, and I got to tell you, it is not. A lot of times they will struggle with entitlement, and it comes because they may have gotten used to getting praise for things that they're doing that are just kind of normal, and it can make you struggle when you get out into the real world and people are just looking at you like, that's, man, that's just really just your job. Okay. It alienates people in the family. A lot of times family members will resent the person because they can't separate the person from the treatment that they got. So siblings will sometimes celebrate when they get in trouble because they haven't watched that sibling get accountability in other situations. Um, the other thing is, it can come with a lot of distress because if you are praised for your performance, what happens if you have a poor performance at something? So it's not uncommon for the golden child to struggle with anxiety due to their fear of failure, or depression if they have a failure and they can't disconnect an event from their identity. So it's, while it's sometimes seen as a, oh, you got lucky, really they didn't. It sets the person up for struggle in relationships with themselves and others. So yeah, it's not the best role to have, which makes me think about Monster. Um, I know he's been wearing the label of the golden child, and it makes me wonder how Monster is experiencing it. I know people are talking about it, talking about him. I'm hoping somebody's talking to him, and finding out how this is landing on him, being perceived as being the child that got everything, especially if he hasn't gotten the emotional support. Because I've seen a couple of conversations that I with him and Maurice, and I'm like, you might have needed to support him in that when he talked about people teasing him or making jokes about his father's DUI. I didn't really hear him come to Monster and say, "Hey man, hey, how are you? How are you doing? How are you doing with being teased?" The focus on the conversation was, well, guess what? I didn't get in trouble. So I don't know that Monster's getting all of this comfort. Even if he is getting praise for things that he's doing, he may not be getting any comfort for the things that he's actually going through. Now I want to add another element. Now you have his stepmom, Kimmy. If she's looking at her own child and going, my kid is getting the Cinderella treatment, and this kid over here is getting preferential treatment, it makes me wonder, how does that affect their dynamics? How does that affect her relationship with him? I wonder how Monster would describe it. I wonder how Monster would describe being the golden child in that family. All things to think about. All things I hope they unpack. Okay? Maybe not in front of us, but in therapy somewhere. Somewhere these things need conversations. So I'll keep you all updated on my journey as a content creator. I had a challenge this week because I'm traveling, and I didn't get a chance to bring my equipment with me, so I'm using natural light today. Natural light. And I think the video is coming out okay so far. So like I said, I'm going to start posting some things on that journey. Some of the mics that I like, the mics that I didn't like. And I'm not using a mic today, so I hope the sound is coming out okay. That's all. We'll talk about some of these other family dynamics in another video. Alrighty, bye-bye.